how we do it at each and every meeting, so I'll go ahead. We recognize that Prince Albert is located within Treaty 6 territory and is the homeland of the Dakota and Métis. We extend our respect to all Indigenous peoples for their valuable past and present contributions and recognize and respect the cultural diversity within the city of Prince Albert. So thank you for that. I'll ask the city clerk, is there any agenda items, additions?
We have correspondence from Ron Horn on behalf of Mike Horn requesting to speak during consideration of item 7.2.
Thank you for that. Can I get approval for the agenda with that addition? Councillor Kilmer?
I move that. Thank you.
Yeah. Seconder? No, oh, right, we're in executive. Okay. All in favor, we'll just do a show of hands. Approval agenda. Hands down, opposed, and that's carried. Okay, so we'll move on to declaration of conflict of interest. You all know what that is. If you have one, please declare. Seeing none, going to move on. Adoption of the minutes. Everyone have received the report. Any comments or motions to accept? Councillor Ring.
I'll move we accept the minutes.
Yeah, there's the motion on the floor. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Hands up. Hands down, opposed, and that's carried. Delegations. So thank you, Rick, for being so patient at the podium. I'll ask, you're the first one up under 5.1, contract zoning to operate U-Haul services at 807 5th Street East for 5 years. You're going to have to turn your mic on the right button in front of you. On the microphone itself.
No, down.
We'll get some IT there. No, there you go. Yes. You're live. Rick, if you want to go ahead.
Honorable members of City Council, thank you for the opportunity to address you today. My name is Rick Cato. I'm here to clarify the nature of our U-Haul rental operations at 807 5th Street East and to ensure that our business remained in compliance with the city's zoning regulations. We value our role in serving the community, and we have always operated with transparency and a commitment to responsible business practices. The key point of clarification is our U-Haul operation is not a fleet service. The city's zoning bylaw defines fleet service as the use of land, building, structure, or portion thereof for keeping, dispatching, storage, and repair of buses, couriers, limousines, taxis, and other similar vehicles, which may include administrative offices or other related activities. This does not include the production, display, or sale of vehicles. That's straight from the city's bylaw. Our operations does not meet this definition for several reasons. We don't have any permanent vehicle storage or repairs on site. The site is primarily an office for processing U-Haul rentals and customer bookings. Vehicles are present temporarily for customer rentals and not for long-term storage. Short-term customer rentals, and this is not fleet management. Our business model allows customers to rent vehicles on a short-term basis. We do not operate like a taxi or courier service where vehicles are managed and dispatched as part of a fleet. We do not have a centralized dispatching or fleet operations. U-Haul vehicles are booked, picked up, and returned to the customers through a self-service system. There's no operational structure that manages multiple vehicles as an ongoing fleet. The second reason for consideration is that our zoning is commercial mixed use, and the previous U-Haul operator was under the same zoning at 15th Avenue and 7th Street, and they operated for 15 years before it was transferred to us, and they were allowed to operate uninterrupted for those years under the same zoning that our land has. The zoning regulations have remained the same, and the business model has not changed. So given that they were allowed to operate, I'm just asking for the same consideration. There has not been any community complaints about our U-Haul operations that have been brought to us. The current zoning inquiry was triggered by us calling the city in for a separate inspection for upgrades that we did to our building, and then while they were there, this was brought up as a non-compliance. We're open to, we respect your request we respectfully request that you not consider us as a fleet and either permit us to consider, to continue under our commercial mixed-use zoning, or approve us for a contract zoning for 5 years so that we can operate for the next 5 years and possibly make a change within that 5 years of location. We acknowledge, we look forward to working with the city and to find a reasonable path forward that supports both local businesses and the community. Thank you for your time and consideration. And I'm not sure if you guys had questions for me, but that's what I had to say.
Thank you so much, Mr. Cato, for that presentation, or at least those words. We all seen the report as well. Any questions from council? Councilor Edwards.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thanks for the presentation. I think we spoke earlier on the telephone, and I believe your request is a reasonable request. And so I look forward to seeing the report come back to council. So thanks for coming out.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Edwards. Councilor Solomon.
Oh, yeah.
You can go ahead. No? Okay. Thank you for your comments today, and thank you for joining us. Just a couple questions. How many units would you have on the property at any given time?
So in the summer, we operated with, on average, 4 at any given time. In the winter, when it slowed down, that's when we had a maximum of 9 there, and it never passed 9 in the whole summer. And we do not take trailers. It's only trucks, and they're movable. Like, in case of anything that should happen, we can just jump in and move them for any reason. It's not trailers that are a little bit harder to move around. But to answer your question, the maximum was in the winter, and it was 9. And they all fit on the side of our property, 3 in each row, and that was it. And we also have control over how much we can have. So if the city were to say only 6, is your max or whatever, that's something that we can look into as well.
Okay, thank you for that. I know we do need the service in the city. It's something I've used myself and sometimes had trouble sourcing, so I appreciate your efforts in that. For that reason, I will move that the suggested disposition.
Yeah, if I could pass the chair over to previous deputy mayor, and I could speak on that, or.
Okay, sure. Sorry, I didn't know.
So thank you, Councillor Solomon. I guess I wanted to say a couple comments on the motion. Instead of bringing this motion to administration and having them come back to us and say, here's the report and here's what we can do, I think we can skip a step. So I would like to see the motion read that it be given to the Community Development Department to negotiate a contract zoning proposal to bring back to council for approval. Would be my hopes for a motion.
I'm agreeable to that.
That's a friendly amendment?
If Councilor Solomon would be willing to make that, yeah.
That could be a friendly amendment.
I'm agreeable.
Sure. And just a couple things. I know you and I had talked quite a few times, Rick, as well, about the service. And one question I have for you, and I know the answer as well, but I think others may have concerns, is any parking those U-Hauls on the street? You talked about having some control. Will there be any U-Hauls parked on the street?
No, there's never any U-Hauls parked on the street.
No, I want to say that I haven't heard any negative feedback from that. If anything, it's been a great addition to our neighborhood, and is a great service to our city. So happy that you've taken that on, and happy to see this motion. So thank you, Councilor Solomon, for that.
Okay, thank you. Now that you passed the chair, are there any other discussions or questions for our speaker? Mayor Pawlinski.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Cato. You had mentioned that, given the need that the vehicles would be able to be moved in short order, and I was thinking the worst case scenario would be a cold weather, 30 below, 40 below, and we've got a fire. What would be the contingency at that point? I know that your property is accessible from other directions, but have you any thoughts around how you might work that out?
Thank you for that question. The fire department did come, and they had no issues with the U-Haul. As it relates to our exits in the building, and they didn't see a problem. The fire department, fire chief came there. the same time the building inspector came. So he himself never had any issue with the U-Hauls. We have ample parking to the, west and north of our building, if that's needed. And again, all the equipment that's on site are drivable equipment and movable. So in any case, it doesn't take anything but minutes to get those out of the way in a worst case scenario.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions for our guest? Councillor Kilmer?
Thank you. Not really a question, but observation. Thank you, Mr. Cato. I enjoyed our conversation, and I do appreciate the respect that you bring this forward, but the work that you had done to follow exactly what our business community does is follow the city regulations. And in that, just got in a little bit in the weeds with definitions. So for that reason, I really appreciate when a business member, community member, does follow regulations to the best of their ability. We should help make sure to help them continue on with their business. So I will support this motion.
Okay. I don't see any more lights on for questions for our guests, so thank you very much. And now we're going to go to discussions on the motion. Do we have any more discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we're going to go to the vote. And our deputy mayor will, this is all in favor. We're using our arms. And that is carried unanimously. So thank you very much.
Thank you,
you.
Councillor
And I'll
Edwards.
pass the chair back to you, Deputy Mayor.
Awesome, thank you so much. We'll move on. 5.2. Thank you, City Manager. So yeah, Rick, if you'd like to leave, you're free to do that. Or your item on the agenda is done, and so you're welcome to make your way out if you like, or stick around. 5.2, enhanced emergency shelter consultation results. 5.21, letters of support. I'll go ahead and open the floor to Jolene Brown, if you would go make your way to the podium. And you have 5 minutes, once you get there, of course. Good day to you. Yes, you can start.
Evening, esteemed councillors. I'm Jolene Brown. I'm a resident here in this city, in the East Flat area. I've lived and worked in this city for the past 6 or 7 years, and I've been a ratepayer property owner for the last 4. I just want to say first off, I'm not an expert. I just live here is what I've been joking, just a resident here. But in my time here living in this city, I did spend some time homeless. I'd really only 2 days, and it was a situation where I was in a rental property. It was early part of the month, and the rental property I was in had a major fire. And luckily for me, my vehicle was not closer to the building. Luckily for me, my workplace was a bit understanding. I had some family in the city, I had some support, but in that time that it took me from the early part of the month to the end of the month to find a new place to rent, I did spend 2 days in my vehicle. And any aspect of that, had it been different, had my workplace been less understanding and fired me, had my vehicle had also been damaged or burned, then I would be looking at a shelter or encampment, and possibly for more than those 2 days. So that's the perspective I want to bring, is just speaking as a resident of the city, as a common person. And, being part of this community, you speak to a lot of people. In all of my social circles, this homeless shelter has been a topic. In my workplace, with my friends, with my family. So, even in the last, I want to say it was about 3 years ago, I even had somebody sleeping on my property. And it was on my deck. I have this table with some chairs now, and they had kind of tarped up kind of on the one side underneath it. And, I won't pretend I was very cool about it. I kind of went into the house, I panicked. I wondered what I was gonna do. And then I just ended up kind of going back outside and just saying, because it was that weather, that minus 35, minus 45 type weather, I just ended up kind of saying, I'm not going to call the police until it warms up a little bit, a bit more squeak, you can imagine, in my voice. And it's just like when you had experience that yourself, and then you see that kind of thing, you end up weighing your sort of personal comfort, possibly your personal safety, versus someone else's life. Like their ability to survive this night might depend on you just saying like, okay, yep, it'll be a little bit, I'll let you stay here a night or 2 or 3, you know? And they took off after a couple days. It all worked out okay. I think they essentially maybe took off with like a cushion from one of those chairs, but whatever, that's not a big deal. Like as far as cost went, like it turned out completely fine for me. Amongst my friends and family, I could probably bring up another like 10 or 15 stories just like this of people who had experienced homelessness not firsthand, maybe firsthand as well, but also secondhand, as like it was on my property, you know? So to me, when the city received the responses from the consultation and the responses from the survey, that was from people like me. That was from citizens of the city who had experienced homelessness or had at least seen some of it, because in this city, it's impossible not to have, you know? When it comes to like the results of that report, seeing the locations listed, those were all locations that I'd heard people talk about in the consultations and over the last 6 or 7 years that I've lived here, honestly. I'm personally in favor of all top 4 locations that were listed in that report. I'm especially in favor of the 2 downtown ones, that 18th Street and the 15th Street location. Those seem like great ideas to me. I think council should take them seriously as suggestions given by the people who answered the survey, which from my understanding is quite a few people. They're narrowed recommendations given by residents who've lived in this city. And this is ultimately, it's a long time coming decision, you know? I'm cautiously optimistic. Like I've spoken to a couple council members over these past couple weeks, and it sounds like you're really digging down, you're doing your research, and you have expertise yourself from, you know, even outside of your role here as council, what you do in your day jobs and stuff like that. So like I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm hoping to see this move forward and move forward as quickly as reasonable, you know? We all have the general anxieties, you know, what happens if we have another winter without something in place? I've heard from a couple council members about, you know, what happens with Stepping Stones shut down this year? Will there be another emergency location picked before this coming winter? And it's just every winter, even with an emergency shelter in place, you hear stories. It's, you know, someone's in your neighbor's garage, someone's on your property. And every time that that happens, if you're the property owner, if you're the person living there, you're making that decision yourself of your personal safety, your personal comfort, for hopefully just a bit of a mess and someone not dying that day, you know? And if I can make that decision personally and all the people that I know who've been in that situation make that decision, I'm hoping that council as well can come to that decision. That's all I got.
Thank you, Jolene, for your words. The next speaker we have is Carolyn Brose-Storm as well. If you're here, please make your way up. Just gonna have to turn on your mic as well. Yeah. Go ahead. You have 5 minutes.
Hi, everyone. My name is Carolyn Brose-Storm, and I've lived in Prince Albert for almost 22 years. I reside in Ward 6 with my family, and I am here today as a concerned resident, but also as a registered nurse who has worked in the downtown since 2005. I am in support of a permanent 24-hour enhanced emergency shelter, and I have to say that I've been disappointed after all these years that we don't have a proper place for some of our most vulnerable to seek shelter. The problem we have is Stepping Stones shelter is temporary, and if that shelter shuts down, there is nowhere to go. It is uncomfortable to see homelessness, but when this shelter eventually has to close, it's going to be even more visible. We need more urgency because the folks that use the current Stepping Stone shelter in Prince Albert are some of the most vulnerable members of our city. As city councillors and as mayor, I'm sure you understand you sit in a great position of privilege. And as that saying goes, with privilege comes great responsibility. A responsibility to make sure that the city of Prince Albert's mission and values are upheld. So your mission states, Through excellence in service, the City of Prince Albert enhances the quality of life for residents and creates opportunity. So take this opportunity to make sure we can care for these vulnerable folks. Your 5 values are listed as accessibility. Does everyone have access? Number 2, accountability and leadership, leading by example, so we can maintain trust. Number 3, diversity and respect, meeting community needs by seeking out and integrating perspective and lived experiences. So that is us today, bringing you these perspectives. Are you aware, according to Homeless Hub, in 2022, the community profile for Prince Albert listed 99% of those experiencing homelessness were Indigenous, and 26.5% were children under the age of 18. The recent point-in-time count in October listed 66% having a mental disorder and 82% struggling with substance use. These two struggles, along with financial issues, are a significant barrier to people obtaining housing. The 4th value, I've had some conversations, and it's about engagement communication, where the worry is that the interests of folks with financial clout have been considered more than those who can't speak with their pocketbook. Number 5, innovation and creativity, embracing new ideas, and are open to change. This is a great opportunity to do so much good. I'm wearing a sticker. It says shelter is a human right, and that is. The right to adequate housing is a fundamental human right. And so I would argue that it is your duty to make sure that right is upheld for everyone. During cold snaps, I can bet you the ER was used as a shelter, and because our temporary shelter doesn't have enough space. The permanent proposal is to double the number of beds, so these folks can be cared for in a more appropriate way. Leaving health issues unaddressed that these folks face will lead to more severe and more expensive interventions. CIHI shows that people experiencing homelessness have 3 times longer hospital stays. So just from a cost perspective, having a shelter is wise. I don't want to see fingers and toes amputated, and I don't want to lose lives anymore. Residents have given you their feedback, and it looked like there was 73.84% urgently wanted to see a shelter built. So we need to mirror that same urgency. As a nurse, I know that people experiencing homelessness have difficulties with things like just even renewing a health card. It's way more difficult because those health cards expire, and it leaves these folks without vital access to lab, x-ray, diagnostics for some serious health conditions that if you don't have a house, you don't have access to. And this could worsen. So my final points: homelessness is a complex issue. Building a shelter is just part of that. You need to make a decision on this urgent need. So please don't kick the can down the road. That would only cost everyone more. The funding is there, so please move on this and provide a safe space for our city's most vulnerable. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Carolyn, for that, for those words as well. Pat Weir is also on the agenda. If you're in the audience, please come to the podium. Yep. Your mic's armed. Go ahead.
This is on? Yeah. My name is Pat Weir. I have been born and raised in Prince Albert, operated a business for 30 years, or maybe even a little bit more, I can't remember. Your worship, councillors, and concerned citizens, I stand before you tonight not as a representative of any organization, but as a deeply concerned citizen of Prince Albert. The words I share come from my heart, a reflection of my belief that every life in our community matters. Homelessness is not simply a local issue affecting Prince Albert or even Saskatchewan. It is a global challenge. On a recent visit to London, England, I witnessed a stark reality. In one of the city's most upscale areas, Mayfair, there was a park there that was lined with blue tarps, carts, and homeless people forced onto the streets. This image is a powerful reminder that homelessness touches communities everywhere, and it is here in our own city. I understand the issue this places on you as our elected officials. I recognize the task of selecting a new site for a homeless shelter should have been decided by the previous administration. However, the responsibility now rests with you. Many of you campaigned on a platform of addressing homelessness. Tonight, I implore you, do not let this challenge continue to be deferred. A decision must be made by you, not the YWCA, not the Downtown Association. It is your responsibility, and the time to act is now. Let me outline some critical points for you to consider. 1, location matters. There are 4 potential sites under discussion. 3 are in residential areas, and 1 is downtown. I have heard that downtown businesses oppose the shelter. They are well organized and financially able to make their voices heard. However, let us not be swayed by the idea that the loudest voices should determine our course. Every location has its merits, and the final decision must weigh all perspectives fairly. The shelter's placement should be guided by compassion and practicality, not by the influence of the most vociferous opposition. While feedback from downtown residents and surveys from the PA community are valuable, it's crucial to directly engage the homeless individuals, especially those facing physical challenges. Their firsthand experiences can provide critical insight into the obstacles they encounter, such as navigating through heavy snow with mobility aids. Like, how do you push a wheelchair or get a wheelchair down a snow-covered sidewalk? Direct consultation might reveal innovative ideas for shelters that not only address immediate needs, but also offer sustainable solutions for winter accessibility, which we're well aware of in this city, like improved transit options or sheltered routes. Have there been any recent outreach efforts or forums to capture their voices, ensuring that the design and location of the shelters meet the practical needs of the disabled homeless community could lead to significant improvements in their quality of life? 2, every life has value. It's crucial to remember that very few people choose homelessness. Those who find themselves without a home are among the most vulnerable in our community. They need a safe haven, a place with basic facilities like a restroom, shower, and a secure environment where they can rest. I can't imagine being a woman on the street and thinking I might be able to get a night's sleep. These are not luxuries, but necessities. Consider that half the users of our current shelter are not struggling with addiction. They are simply individuals who have lost their way, whether through unfortunate circumstances or difficult decisions. They deserve a chance to rebuild their lives. Number 3, addressing addiction with compassion. We cannot ignore that many who experience homelessness also battle addiction. The rise of dangerous street drugs is a global crisis. While a shelter will not solve addiction overnight, it can offer a safe place to sleep and access support services. In our community, help for those struggling with substance abuse is limited. People seeking assistance often face long waits for detox and treatment, only to return to the harsh realities of the streets. Although the gaps in our care system are significant, delaying the decision on a shelter is not an acceptable solution. A shelter is a first step, one that must be accompanied by a broader, coordinated effort involving all levels of government. 4, the moral mandate of leadership. You are entrusted with a mandate to confront issues like homelessness, not to postpone decisions until a perfect solution appears. Any location chosen will inevitably leave some residents dissatisfied, but leadership requires making difficult choices for the greater good. The homeless in our community are among our most fragile citizens. They span all ages, from the youngest to our elderly. As one wise politician once said, the ultimate moral test of any government is the way it treats its children, its vulnerable, and its elderly. In this light, the homeless representing all these groups deserve our utmost compassion and urgent action. In closing, I ask you to see beyond the immediate challenges and to act with courage and compassion. The decision you make will echo in the lives of our most vulnerable citizens and will reflect the true character of our city, one that we need to be proud of. It's a call not just for policy, but for a community that cares for every individual, ensuring that no one is left behind. Thank you for your time, your consideration, and for the difficult work you do to make Prince Albert a better place for us all. Thank you.
Thank you. Hold off. Yeah. Sorry, and thank you. Very passionate words, Ms. Weir. And I just want to the gallery, if you can refrain from clapping or showing any kind of applause, that would be appreciated. Thank you. We'll move on to the next speaker. Kimberly Ray Dickinson, if you could make your way to the podium. Yes, there you are. Thank you very much. You have 5 minutes. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for having us today. My name is Kimberly, and I was a part of a group 4 years ago that tried to secure a satisfactory location for a permanent shelter with a mustard seed. At that time, we were met with some major roadblocks, and the biggest one was location. Now, here we are 4 years later, seemingly still unable to agree on a suitable location for a permanent shelter, even though there has been lengthy consultations with the community and a citywide survey giving every citizen a chance to have their voice heard. I urge you today to delay no longer. Even though there are many thoughts on why a location close to downtown is best for everyone involved, a sentiment I agree with, a less than ideal location is absolutely better than no suitable location at all. Now, it occurs to me that there's a foundational question we all need to ask ourselves. What does it mean to be human? Or maybe I should ask, what does it mean to be humane? In the Cambridge Dictionary, it means showing kindness, care, and sympathy towards others, especially those who are suffering. The Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines it as marked by sympathy and consideration of others. Being humane is, in essence, what it means to be human. So then we need to ask ourselves, what makes a human worthy of kindness, care, and compassion? Does it depend on what we produce? Or do we have inherent value just because we are human? Some say that people experiencing homelessness don't contribute to our society and are a drain on our systems. Well, I am a cancer patient. I've been in treatment and not working for 2.5 years. The cost to the government and health systems for my treatment and support has likely topped $1 million by now. I am not married, and because I had been let go from my job of 10 years without cause less than a year before my diagnosis, I have not had health benefits nor sufficient income to provide for my needs, and would have been living on the streets, but for family and friends who have supported me. So does that make me less valuable? Does that mean that I shouldn't have a roof over my head and my basic needs met? It is a sobering thought to consider. I don't think anyone really chooses willfully and from a healthy frame of mind to live on the streets, unless they are maybe choosing to leave an abusive family situation and have nowhere else to go. But if you are living with an addiction or mental illness without your basic needs met, how can you even begin to find a way out of that? At some point, we need to show that we value all human life and that each person's value is not equal to or dependent on their profitability or their output. Each of us here could find ourselves in dire straits, needing help with our basic needs, but because of the support systems we have in place, like family and friends, we won't end up living on the streets. But that is not the story of every person. As a community, we can be that support system and put our money and our care where it matters, towards people. We are a city in grave need of reconciliation work. The effects of residential schools on our Indigenous community members is far-reaching, and how we approach our unhoused population will speak volumes to the regrets of those actions. I realize that likely no one present in this room made the decision to have residential schools, but most of us also do not live with the repercussions every day for those decisions, like our Indigenous brothers and sisters do. I believe we must stand up for those who have been deeply affected and do what we can to care for and lift them up, even hold them up for a time if they need it and want it. Because it is also not their fault that they have been beaten down. Providing someone with a warm place to lay their head and food in their bellies is the least we can do in showing compassion and care. And we know from what we've heard that what Stepping Stones provides goes far beyond that in order to heal and restore individuals to wholeness. One thing that I've deeply admired about Indigenous culture is the value put on relationships above profitability. So maybe it's time we learn a better way. Every member of our community is valuable, and if one suffers, all of us suffer. I want to close by sharing a quote from Martin Luther King Jr., and it's a biblical reference, so maybe not everyone will understand it, but it's from the story of the Good Samaritan. He says, the first question which the priest and the Levite asked was, if I stop to help this man, what will happen to me? But the Good Samaritan reversed these questions and said, if I do not stop to help this man, what will happen to him? My hope is that the community of Prince Albert, we can learn to be more humane, and in doing so, become more human. I urge this council to approve a location for the permanent shelter that we all know is needed in our community. We cannot delay any longer. Thank you.
Thank you for those words. Very heartfelt. Our next speaker, Vicky Blanchard, if you could, make your way to the podium. Go ahead, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council members. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. I come to you as a concerned citizen from Ward 6, but also as someone who may be a good resource regarding the urgency of approving a destination for a shelter for the unhoused. I'm also someone who, as an addiction counselor, knows the importance of location for the unhoused, as I've been working with them for the last 8 years in different roles along the way. I've also experienced being a business owner in Prince Albert for almost 9 years prior to counseling. Due to my work experience, I can confirm that when someone is in need of immediate shelter, the options are stepping stones, detox at the hospital, or call the police and they can stay the night in cells. I can tell you from experience, when stepping stones and detox are full and cells are a real fear for people, there's nothing else. Sure, we have emergency services such as mobile crisis and emergency women's shelter, but mobile can't provide hotel rooms for everyone, and more than 9 times out of 10, the women's shelter is full. And now we know that the Stepping Stones location is unsafe and will be closing its doors. If you think you've struggled with the unhoused people downtown now, well, just wait, because according to a court ruling in Kingston, Ontario in November of 2023, encampments can't be dismantled or destroyed on public land, for example, the downtown area, if there is not a shelter available to them. That's what this lack of haste has created. You will also see more trips to the ER, ambulance being used because more unhoused people will call for those services so they can get a ride to the hospital, warm up, and possibly be wheelchaired down to detox when accessibility is not an option for them. Not a great use for our services, which will also interfere with response times for other emergencies. Just ask any paramedic or ER nurse what they know will be the result of this hesitation to choose a site and get started. As far as accessibility, in the last point-in-time analysis, 31.5% reported having physical mobility issues. Having them access the services they need in town and then asking them to walk 2 kilometers just to check if there is a bed available is not feasible nor logical, but I also recognize that we must take what we can get, even if it doesn't make sense to some of us who work in the field. Speaking of accessibility, I would like to thank Mr. Edwards for this quote from the PA Daily Herald in 2022, where it quotes Mr. Edwards as saying in regards to the mustard seed issue, I have some concerns about having the center on the main shopping street. I believe it should be located just off of Central Avenue, somewhere in the downtown area. I've talked to the public and they have concerns even though it is a necessity in our community. And I believe he's right. It just makes the most sense to be somewhere in the downtown area. Also included in the point-in-time analysis was data stating that the proportion of individuals who reported addiction or substance use increases the time spent homeless, from 19% at 0 to 2 months to 28.2% for those reported over 6 months of homelessness in the past year. That's what's coming, is that increase. I have seen the effects of what happens when someone doesn't have a place to sleep. I would never be so pompous as to speak for someone who is unhoused because I really can't relate. I've been privileged. I've never been so cold that I broke into a home and just waited for the police to come so I could get arrested and have food and shelter. I've never had to use crystal meth to stay awake so I didn't get assaulted. I've never had to stay close to street family at night out of the fear of getting rolled by gang members because there's strength in numbers. But I can tell you, those aren't rare stories. Those are common stories that I hear daily. You might say, you don't have to convince us. We already agreed to a permanent shelter already. And to that, I will say this. I've been told by my peers at work that I'm the queen of metaphors, so I will end with this. If I were going on vacation, I might ask my neighbors, who will water my plants? Someone might say, pick me, I'll water your plants, I'll do a great job, you'll see. So I picked them. Great, I say, I trust you. But then the guy I trust can't decide which watering can to use. And the other neighbors say, hey, we can see through the window. Her plants are dying. And he says, I said I was going to do it, and I'll do it. Just need to decide which watering can to use. And time goes by, and then it's too late. All because he said he would do a job, but it didn't get done. This is where we're at. Years ago, it was promised to be dealt with. And yes, many of you are new, but many of you have used it as your platform to be in the position that you're in. So today, I'm not asking you to do something new. I'm asking you to pick a watering can. Just fulfill the promises already made. And to be honest, I might have asked someone else to water my plants had I known it was going to take this long, because I know plants. So water the plants, because what's to come if you don't is not good for anyone. Thank you.
Thank you for those words, yes. An interesting metaphor, yes, as well. So the next speaker we have, Alex Zahara, if you could, make your way up. Yep, welcome.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. My name is Alex Zahara, and I would like to thank you for allowing me to speak today on behalf of Prince Albert Pride. Our organization would like Mayor and Council to know that we are in strong support of selecting a shelter location, particularly one that is within reasonable walking distance of support services. To begin, I would like to thank the City of Prince Albert for being strong allies of Prince Albert Pride. We regularly see members of council at our events and have had very positive experiences utilizing city services. This includes working with city staff to determine a parade route, utilizing the grandstand at Kinsman Park, as well as hosting Teen Pride events at municipally owned locations, including Little Red and Kinsman Water Park. We would like to invite each of you to attend our annual Pride in the Park celebration and parade, which will be hosted Saturday, June 7th, 2025. We thank the city for their efforts in ensuring Prince Albert is a safer space for 2S LGBTQ people. As part of our efforts to advocate for Prince Albert's queer community, we are urgently supporting a permanent shelter for two key reasons. First, 2S LGBTQ people are overrepresented within the unhoused community. There are a number of reasons for this, including being rejected from family homes that do not affirm queer identities. A study published in 2022 found that approximately 5% of unhoused people in Prince Albert identified as Two-Spirit. We expect this is an underestimation and one that has likely increased given rising anti-LGBTQ sentiment. Indeed, in the last point in time count from 2024, at least 12% of unhoused people self-identify as something other than heterosexual. To put that in perspective, Stats Canada says about 4.5% of the population are 2S LGBTQ. Queer people are overrepresented in PA's unhoused community at a rate of 3 times the general population. Second, it is important to have a permanent shelter space that supports the needs and well-being of 2S LGBTQ people. The temporary location, while crucial in supporting our community until a permanent shelter is built, places all people in a single location regardless of gender identity, which may put 2S LGBTQ people in harm's way. Having a permanent shelter in place will help rectify this issue. We understand that this is a decision that Council has paid careful attention to. There are many competing interests and opinions about where and whether a shelter should be built. Proximity to services is a key concern for us. The 3 locations near or adjacent to downtown would be our preference, though if that is not possible, a location near the current temporary shelter would also be acceptable. We want to reiterate that you have the strong support of Prince Albert Pride in selecting a permanent shelter location, and we will continue to support you as the shelter is developed. Kistapi Nanak is the great meeting place and has always been the gathering place for many peoples and nations. It is our tradition to take care of people who are in our community, one that extends to the founding agreements of our city between the Isbusters and the Nesbits. Let's please keep this proud tradition going. Our sincere thanks, Prince Albert Pride.
Thank you very much, Alex, for that, those words. The next speaker we have is a Daphne,
I'll say it in my...
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak this afternoon. My name is Daphne Massey, and I'm a resident of Prince Albert. I work with Communities Building Youth for Futures, a community organization that works out of the Bernice Saïs Center. I am also a foster parent. In recent months, we have heard that approximately Half of those unhoused in Prince Albert have spent time in the care of the Ministry of Social Services, and so I come from a place of advocacy to protect those who may have been once in situations that my own kids have been in. I'd like to start by acknowledging the work that has been accomplished so far. First, to the YWCA, who has worked tirelessly for years to ensure that our brothers and sisters have their basic needs met, needs many of us likely take for granted on a regular basis. Second, to those who have worked to gather information, host citywide consultations, and fielding many questions over the course of months and years, and those who create alternative ways, such as surveys, to gather more community input. And also to City Council, who have undoubtedly taken many phone calls and received many letters regarding this endeavor, having a great decision upon your shoulders. I'd also like to acknowledge the concerns that have been raised regarding, I think, primarily the shelter location and expediency. From a sociological standpoint, creating space for those who are unhoused is more than a homelessness issue, it is a community issue. Providing basic necessities does not have a net zero effect on our society. It will allow us to address overall issues of safety and well-being. If we are able to house people, we can address the root of crimes. When people have adequate access to washrooms, we can tackle the issue of cleanliness on our streets. When we have food and shelter provided, we can alleviate the strain on our healthcare system. When we alleviate the crisis mode that our homeless live under every moment of every day, we are able to give them adequate next steps and further contribute to the next steps of our community as a whole toward greater holistic health. I know these decisions are difficult because of many differing views, and council must take on those and find a way forward, without a doubt making somebody unhappy in the process. Furthermore, I recognize that this is a completely different council with different dynamics from past years, and there is much that has fallen into your lap, and I do not take that lightly. I believe that you both represent the people of this city and lead the people of this city, and leadership is in fact hard. Ralph Waldo Emerson said famously, "Do not follow where the path may lead, go instead where there is no path and leave a trail." We have been on the same path for many years at this point, and it feels like it's well past time that we are led off that path by leaders who are willing to create a trail, one that ultimately can only be led by this council of decision makers. I would like to end by acknowledging the findings of various research done in this community. That is, that a vast majority of those who are homeless in our community are Indigenous, a fact that causes me, and many people that are in my circle, great sorrow. And I am hard-pressed to remember where we are today, for we are a people of mixed origin that stand together today on Treaty 6 territory, traditional lands of the Cree, Dene, Dakota, Lakota, Nakota, Saulteaux, and the homeland of the Métis. It is by the goodness of the Creator that these first peoples took care of this land, ensuring that they respected each person and created thing upon it in reverence and gratitude. It is to them that we are forever indebted, for without their diligence, we would not have vast farming and hunting opportunities. We would not have vast resources, access to water, and other good things upon this land. And when early Europeans came to explore this land, many nearly died due to harsh winters and the great unknowns of this place, and it was the Indigenous people who protected them, brought them into their community, fed them, clothed them, provided shelter for them, despite the fact that at that time, Europeans were a drain on their Indigenous communities, having no knowledge and no ability, being new, to contribute. It is this history that boldly suggests that although it may be centuries later, in the spirit of reconciliation, and particularly actionable reconciliation, we could offer them the same immediate supports that their ancestors gave to the early explorers and settlers, those who have historically been considered the founders of this country. These actions of our first peoples paved the way for the privileges many of us now have access to. And so it is with this sentiment, Mr. Mayor and City Councilors, that I would like to advocate for a decision in favor of turning the tide of history, to honor our indebtedness to those who have fallen through the cracks of a system that can do better, for the health of our people, our city, and our future. Thank you.
Thank you for those words, and thank you to all the speakers for all their elegant words and well thought out, bringing those sentiments to council, those comments as well. So thank you for that. Great addition, and really happy that you all showed up. So back to council. Seeing that we have no more speakers, what are your wishes? Councilor Pronto.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I would like to make a motion tonight
then that motion is that administration negotiate with the Provincial Ministry of Social Services and the YWCA to establish a permanent shelter on city property that is located within the vicinity of the current Stepping Stone shelter, as has been identified during the public consultation process, and 2,
You may have to repeat that first part. No, you got it? Okay.
and 2, that a development permit for a permanent shelter be brought forward for consideration at an upcoming city council meeting. And Deputy Mayor, if you would allow me, I'd like to speak to why I'm making this motion.
Yes, no one else's mic on. Go ahead.
So the one thing that I'm looking for tonight is some stability and security. I think we need a path forward that was very clear with the delegation that we had tonight. And I do want to thank everyone for coming and speaking so passionately in support of a shelter. It is something I know that all of us on council, or most of us at least, know that is crucial to move forward and create a city that's more caring and more human. I propose this option because it is listed in the top 4 suggestions of the survey that was done through public consultation. And after conversations with the YWCA, there are also some synergies in keeping this shelter in that area. One being that the YWCA is already used to operating in that area, and that the YWCA has built some relationships in that area in the city. So, moving forward in this way, it creates some security and stability for the YWCA. It gives them some land options that will accommodate the building that they need and want. And I'm also hoping that this motion will move us forward in a good way so that we can build a permanent shelter in our city, an enhanced one, one that has the services that are needed to move people forward along the housing continuum and work on their recovery. So I'm hoping that other members on council will support me in this motion. I think it was very clear tonight that people in the city are looking for clarity and looking for a way to move forward. So thank you.
Councillor Kimmer.
Thank you, and thank you very much, Councillor Pronto, for this motion. My question is for the Director of Community Development. What anticipated timeline do you see a development permit coming forward to City Council?
The Director.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Kilmer, for the question. Well, with our relationship with the YWCA, who's mentioned in the motion, and the Ministry of Social Services, we meet with them on a very regular basis. The information that we've collected through the public consultation process, for the most part, has been shared with them, as has been shared with the public. So I don't think, this location will necessarily come as a surprise. So I expect that, those negotiations, as the motion states, can start happening as soon as tomorrow, and we can bring a recommendation to City Council at the next upcoming City Council meeting.
The next City Council meeting is what I heard?
Yes, I'll have to look at the schedule. I don't know if the city clerk has that in front of her right now, but.
Does that also include consultation with the area, or does that have to happen?
The consultation with the area would have to happen. I'm sorry, what's the date?
Yeah. April 7th. Yeah.
April 7th. So yes, it would be the following meeting, thank you, at the end of April.
Okay.
May 12th?
May 12th?
Thank you, City Manager.
So May 12th would be when council would determine the passing of the development permit and it could move forward. Is that correct?
That provides us with the time we need to provide council with a report for consideration, yes.
Okay, thank you. I just want to say I support this motion. I really appreciate the need for a permanent shelter. I appreciate the work that has been done and continues to be done by our fantastic community of people who serve. I want to thank all residents, including our business community. Everyone deserves their voice, and their voices were heard and measured and brought in. It appears that this was polarizing to our community, when in fact it isn't polarizing, it's important. And when something is so important, it does take a bit of time. And I appreciate all of the letters, all of the phone calls, all of the stops on the street, and all of the chances that our citizens, even tonight, taking the opportunity to speak with the care and compassion, and that's who we are. So I just want to say I am in support of this motion, and I look forward to moving forward.
Councillor Brown?
Yeah. I didn't want that motion changed. I like the other motion. I find this one's pigeonholing us down to that vicinity. I think there's too much going on right now. Like, I've been sitting in this chair for 4 months. 2 of it I spent doing budget. Another month and a half I spent learning everything else there is to learn on this. This is a big topic for the city. I get it. I appreciate you guys coming out and voicing your concerns. One of you guys said is, don't listen to the loudest. You know what? You guys are the loudest. So there's a lot of people out there that talk to me and they say they don't want a shelter. The reality is we're gonna get a shelter, right? Just give us some time. There's 5 of us that are new to council. We're doing our best, right? Shake your head all you want. It is what it is. May 24th, joint media release to explore property options. What were the results of those, that work? We had a meeting as soon as I started with PAGC and other members to make a joint proposal to the province for help finding a location. 90% of the population is Aboriginal, and we aren't even listening to them. We're not even talking to them again. So where is their voice at this table? This is the stuff that's going around social media. Opinions are being placed in the papers about what their feelings are, and there's so much misinformation that's going on. Like, there is a ton of options. We just got a list of the land inventory. There is 100 different options that are viable. This is gonna stick us to one, and now we're gonna go down and have a community consultation after passing this tonight, if it passes. Then what? If it comes to council and gets shot down, then we're back to the drawing board, right? Then I'm getting accused of postponing it. I'm not postponing it. I'm taking my time to make an educated decision. That's what I got elected to do. Make my opinions and my votes based on knowledge. I don't have all the answers right now, you guys. I know the government's paying $41,245 per bed per year. The average person making minimum wage makes $31,000, and then they get taxed on it. So these are my tax dollars that are going to fund this. I want it funded appropriately. You know, someone else said blaze a new trail. You know what? The Y's doing a good job, yep. Do I think there could be changes made? Yeah, 100%. Do I think there's homeless people with addiction problems that are abusing it? I had family members that live on the street. And tough love, you know what? Sometimes the old way is the right way. I had to turn my back on my child and not enable him to keep doing what he was doing. That killed me as a father. So when I see homeless people on the street, it breaks my heart because I know what it's like. I have other family members that are out there living on the street. I had friends that passed away from addictions on these streets of PA. Do I think we need to put the money into addictions bed? Damn rights I do. Sorry about my language there. There is other stuff we could be doing. So I don't like the way some of the misinformation is that we're dragging our heels and blah, blah, blah. We're trying to do the best, okay? If I don't vote this forward, I don't get elected in 4 years, well, you know what? I did my best while I was here, so thanks for the time. The other thing is, the Y has a 45-bed contract. The last bit count was 230 people. Where's the rest of them going? The government didn't say anything about expanding that contract, so more misinformation. There's gonna be doubling. We haven't heard that yet. Where's the money gonna come from? Taxpayers? It's all taxpayer funded, right? So that's just a few of the things I got. Here's the other thing with that government money. You could take all that money that they're paying $1.8 million to 45 people for beds. And they don't even have to be in the bed, but the Ys still getting the money, right? So they can carry it over and put it into programs or whatever else. Good, do that. But if the government just paid 59 people minimum wage for doing nothing, we're helping 14 more people. There's other options, you guys. Sometimes you need a fresh eyes and a big mouth to say something to make change. So I guess those are just my opinions on this matter. I don't like it, and as a friendly amendment, I would like it to go back to the other way. So sorry if that offended anybody, but that's where I'm coming from.
Okay, the next speaker we have is Councillor Ring.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just want to thank all the presenters and everybody here for showing their passion for the city. It's fantastic. And the speakers, there was some real strong messages there. Tell you right off the top, I am in favor of this motion. And for the simple reason that my guiding principle through this whole thing was compromise. And this is a compromise from both sides, from us and from the YWCA, because I understand that they are in favor of this location, and why wouldn't they be? That's where it is now. So I am in favor of this, and I am not in favor of, as one person put it, I am not in favor of kicking the can down the road any further. This has gone on long enough. I realize for me it's only been 3 months, but this has gone on long enough. We've got to make a decision. It's one of the 4 options that were on the survey, and I think it's a really good compromise. And I will be in favor of this. And again, thank you everybody for your presentations. They were very heartwarming, and some of them very heartwarming. And everybody here for their attendance, showing a lot of support for this city. And hopefully we can move forward on this quickly and get the right thing done. Thank you.
Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I have a whole lot of notes, so I'm going to jump around those notes. I apologize in advance if I skip around a little bit. So first off, I recognize housing is a critical need for success for everybody. I work as a parole officer in the penitentiary. If there's a release without a place to live, it becomes a problem. And I understand that, fully understand that. And despite all the name calling that we've seen in emails and calls over the last couple of months, I'll tell you, I do care, and I care about people. And I support a shelter. I do support a shelter. But when I hear things like kick the can down the road, and I've heard that, we heard it tonight, and I respect that, but it's not necessarily true. So I'm going to start with the mustard seed. 4 years ago, the mustard seed came with an idea, and that's what it was an idea that PA needs a shelter, and they're ready. But the fact is they didn't have the funding. There was some discussions on some ideas about locations, talked about downtown. Likely that's where my quote was, that, you know what, they were looking at some ideas on Central Avenue. They were also looking at some off of Central Avenue, which I thought at the time was, probably one of our better options was off of Central Avenue, because I don't believe it should be on Central Avenue. But the reality is, and I think a lot of people have the misunderstanding that they were ready, but the fact is they didn't have the funding. The provincial government did not have the funding to support mustard seed. So did council at the time kick the can down the road? No, we did not. I was on council at the time. No, we did not have an official proposal at any location to say we're ready to go. And that misunderstanding has been spread out. It's been spread out in a Daily Herald report recently, in an opinion, where council should have dealt with this. Well, the fact is, the last city council never received an official proposal for a permanent shelter until just before the last election. That's the true story. So how did we kick the can down the road? Because I don't think we did. I know I didn't. I know that there was a temporary shelter, and it's a key aspect to our community that we have shelter for people. And I support it. I also support a chronic risk facility that is desperate for our community and will help our community. And I hope the government steps forward and puts it into our community and funds it. I really do hope, because many of these concerns, when we're talking about a true homeless shelter, and there's many people that require a homeless shelter, many people don't want to go to the shelter, to a voluntary shelter. But a chronic risk facility, the reality is, some of the people that some are scared of in our community, that we believe are homeless, could fit in the chronic risk facility. The ones that are constantly harassing people in our shopping area where they're intoxicated on a regular basis, they could go into this chronic risk facility, and I do support it. But I do support the shelter. I support what the YWCA has been trying to do. I support that. They talk about enhanced shelter. Boy, I hope this is an enhanced shelter, because it needs mental health on site. It needs addiction therapy on site, because as soon as we send people out the door who have an addiction to hope they get to their appointment, we're rolling the dice. I heard that phrase a little while ago. We're rolling the dice. And that is part of our problem. There's no question about it. Addictions, I've talked to many people on the street. Why are you here? Why are you in Prince Albert? Well, some of them grew up. Many of them said, well, I'm just here. I didn't have a ride home. I didn't have transportation home. Or I'm here for the drugs. Some freely, openly admit it. They're here for the drugs, because the fact is, PA is a good place to find drugs, and that's another problem. It's a major issue in our community. I just talked to Chief Joyce McLeod. She phoned me while we were in a break there in between meetings. She called me and she said, listen, I want my words heard. She wanted to speak. And I have deep respect for the Chief of Montreal Lake. And she wanted her voice heard, that number one, her community is not banning a lot of people, because that's been a topic of discussion. And BCRs are a reality in some communities, but Montreal Lake, it hasn't happened for a while, or it doesn't happen often. But her belief is addictions is the major issue. Addictions is the major issue contributing to homelessness in our city. And mental health, which often comes along with addictions. So those services are critical to have on site. And I hope the government agrees to fund those services as soon as it can open. I hope it does. I think that methadone, that's another topic. I think methadone can be delivered to the shelter. And it was delivered I know there's some people shaking their head in the crowd, but it was delivered during COVID. And I recently spoke to a doctor who dispenses methadone, who said, yes, it can be delivered. Why? Why did I speak to that doctor? Well, I did some research, and that's what we're asked to do. So when I hear kick the can down the road or get a decision right now, well, how about trying to make the best decision for the community? And that, to me, is what this process was about. We had a number of meetings that anybody could attend. I attended 3 of them, couldn't get to the 4th. I heard many different views. I sat at multiple tables and listened to different opinions, and believe me, there's a lot of different opinions, from no darn shelter to put it out of town to put it downtown. It's the only place it can be, to let's just be supportive of having a permanent shelter. And the location that's been addressed here, the YWCA is okay with that location. I mean, I've spoke to them, many of us have spoke to them, and they're okay with it. And that's a good thing. And someone said a compromise. Well, this is a compromise. They have been located in this area for a number of years now. And I recently spoke to someone that said, I didn't know there was a shelter down there. Well, guess what? That's great. And Donna Brooks has said that. A good run shelter, people don't notice. And I hope it continues that way. And I think it can. But the stark reality is once we say a permanent shelter, which is a huge decision, you're gambling. And you're gambling in a big way, because it could disrupt a community. And it has disrupted some communities in other cities. But I have the faith in the YWCA. I think they operate lots of great services in the community. And I think they're the right choice to operate a permanent shelter in our city. So to me, this is the right decision. It's going to be challenged by many people. This is a very difficult decision for all of council. I've been around, and this is probably one of the hardest decisions I've been involved in. But my colleague across the room always tells me, believe in the process. Well, this was a process. Not delay, but listen. Educate ourselves. Listen again, and then make a choice. And to me, this is a good motion, and I do support it. And I think it will move forward. It's going to be a process to build a building on a vacant lot. Do we have to find a temporary shelter? Well, yeah, we will, for sure, and we'll support it. We'll find one. In the meantime, we're going to move forward, and hopefully, in a positive way, we can start reducing homelessness in our city. Thank you.
Councillor Leowitz.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and I want to thank everybody that spoke tonight, everybody that came here tonight. Like Councillor Edwards, I've been jotting down notes, so this might be a little back and forth. But I do want to acknowledge that, this is an issue of great importance to the city. And, it's been a priority of mine to get into this and find the best location possible since we were elected. But there also needs to be a balance in there from the public of understanding that, we did just walk into this a few months ago. And I'm well aware of the moral obligation that we have to take care of our most vulnerable population. But we also have an obligation to the rest of the city as well. And we have to listen to their voices. We have people that have dedicated their lives to providing services for our communities, and their voices need to be heard too. And going through the consultation process, was the first step into moving this forward. I did get a lot of feedback from residents that they didn't participate in it because there was no locations. That was the main reason why they didn't participate in it. And they wanted to see a survey come out with multiple locations on it, and then they would make their preferred selection then. 1,500 people participating, that's less than 5% of the population. Is that a good amount of participation? I'm not so sure. We're not hesitating to establish a location. This location, I'm not a huge fan of. It's right by SIAS. There's student housing there that they're required to have families to be approved for that student housing. There's kids right there. And then this, for instance, is quite far from most services. Well, that was one of the most important things on the survey, was being close to services. So why are other locations shoved to the side because of their distance from services, but this one is the solution, the compromise? I believe we have to make compromise. I believe that there's other locations throughout the city, now that we've got our city map, which we just recently got, that would serve as great locations. And I think that, like Councillor Brown said, we're pigeonholing ourselves here. I'm 100% committed to moving this forward. I want to see it get done as quick as possible. But I don't want to narrow us down to, you know, one singular location right now. I think we should have, like we initially had, 4 locations and get those local consultations done. Right now, what we're doing with this is we're bypassing a step, and we're saying, okay, this is a location, only do it here. What's the point in talking to people in the area if this is the only location that we're gonna be voting on? And I don't wanna see this come up and get voted down and then restart this ball all over again. But like I said, I'm very much committed to moving this forward. I absolutely am 100% in favor of a new permanent homeless shelter in the city. I just wanna make sure that we're doing our due diligence. You know, I've heard some pretty hateful comments during some of the, you know, consultations from, you know, representatives of special interest groups. I don't share that sentiment. You know, I support our business community, but, you know, a lot of the comments that are on social media, you know, some of the information being shared in our local newspapers, like it's, you know, being critical of this process does not speed it up. Being critical of this process and, you know, criticizing our compassion and criticizing our intentions of what we're doing, it doesn't help move this along. But I'm committed to moving this forward. But unfortunately, I will not be supporting this motion tonight.
I just shut the mics off. Councillor Sullivan is next. Mr. Mayor? Mayor
Thank you.
Polinsky, yes.
I'm going to go back to a broad sweeping statement about our mandate. And it's all citizens for the common good of all. It's not really written anywhere, but that's the spirit and intent of how we approach our responsibility as elected politicians. And like Councillor Edwards, I jotted notes all over the map here, so bear with me. And I agree, this is probably, I stated before with council that this will be one of the hardest decisions, not only for 2025, but probably for the term coming up. And there's no denying that we're doing the best that we can to get the input through a process, make it available, make the agenda transparent and clear. Now, I agree that we don't want misinformation circulating. So to one point, when we had the community-wide meeting with Prince Albert Grand Council and the 40-some agencies represented around the table, Chief Hardlot made the motion that we proceed. I seconded the motion, indicating that PAGC and the City of Prince Albert are working in a collaborative relationship. The difficulty right now is that the province mandated us back in April 2024, clearly stating that it is the city that needs to take the leadership and make the decision and endorse the location. The reply to that letter did not happen until just before the election. So of course, then things got stalled. However, this homelessness thing is not a new issue. It's not something that we as councillors, whether we're new or experienced, just ran into and saying, oh my, look at, I'm not ready for this. We've been dealing with this. I hear, not in my backyard quite often as a quote, but you know what, folks? It's in our front yard. It's in our side yard. We say that we're concerned about a facility being close to certain amenities. Well, homeless people right now are downtown. There's daycares, there's businesses, there whatnot. Homeless people are not the criminals. They're poor people who are desperate for survival, and sometimes they will do, pick up somebody's garden hose and try to sell it so that they can get a meal. So what do we have to date? Well, so far we've had a fair, transparent, conscientious approach to arriving at a recommendation for locations. Now, I personally feel that the consultations were done properly to find out from the community what the community feels. Business, citizens, agencies, council, everybody. What is it that we think we need in terms of services and amenities for a shelter? Talking to Donna Brooks at a council meeting for information, it was clear that their service contract with the government is to provide enhanced support. Addictions, mental health, health and social services. So that draws the people to that location, the service providers and the people who need the service. We have a funding commitment from the provincial government, and we're not at risk of losing the funding, but on day 2 of my current term, I met with Sask Housing, and they expressed concern that this has been dragging on. Now, I know I appreciate Councillor Edwards' point about not kicking the can down the street. However, if you really want to start at point 1, a temporary shelter was the first step, to be a temporary shelter. The intention was not that it would be a 4-year-long ordeal. So, I mean, obviously, somewhere in that mix, there was the vision and the view and the opportunity to say we're moving to a permanent shelter. There's a lot that goes into that decision, a lot of consideration, which I agree with my colleagues. But we have the criteria that we need for a shelter based on community input. If we want to avoid misinformation, however, we can't say that there's 100 possible locations. Not when we've, I would say I'd like to see 100. The other thing is we know that through the consultation, there's a narrowing down of what's going to work and what's not going to work, just for common sense reasons. So we have an objective, systematic, rational, and really, frankly, a statistically valid approach to having analyzed data. And I think we have to respect 2 things here. One is the public's input. Number 2 is the professional expertise of our staff. Some of us have had the luck, or not, of having to take social methods and research back in the day, and I don't remember about a quarter of what I learned. But I do know that looking in the survey, looking at the process and the format, it was a valid survey. And to Councillor Lewitz's point on 5%, when you do a survey like that, 5% is a pretty reasonable outcome. 10 would be desirable, but hardly ever achievable. So we did make the opportunity available for people to come to 1 of 4 consultations outside of normal working hours. If people choose not to come, that's their peril. Now, our subsequent consultation, whether it's a location, as Councillor Pronto has suggested, or 4 possible locations, as we've heard, perhaps what we need to do is focus and open it with saying, okay, folks, look, any one of these locations or this location, if we go with 4 locations, my opening remark would be, we know that we're going to have a shelter and it's going to land somewhere. If it lands in your area, how do we make this work? Not whether or not it should be or shouldn't be there. That's done with. That's over. That's past. Because we've seen individual consultations on this area, that area, and we've just seen the continued resistance and the continual pushback. So I really feel that it's time for us to put our necks on the line, so to speak, and we need to move this agenda ahead. We do have recommendations of 4 possible locations that have been made free of bias by our administration. We've had a process that's separating the role of staff administration from council. And by that I mean the administration is saying, here are the facts that we have found. Now, you folks, it's now in your court. Council makes the decision. So, you know, I'm not going to go through the full list of things that I think we have at this moment. But my question is, what is it that we need in order to move forward? We said we needed more information. We got that information. We're saying, yeah, we want to look at other locations, but do I trust the director of planning and development and his team to have gone through and looked at those sites? I certainly do. I mean, if we want to talk about all these possible locations, I've heard, well, yeah, let's look at across the river. That obviously is not not going to fit with the criteria that people have identified as being required for a successful shelter. I'm sorry, did you have something you wish to share with the public, Councillor?
Yeah, it was in the report.
All right.
Across the river was in the report.
Yes, and that was a suggestion, and when we go through the criteria, not the want, wish list, go through the criteria of what it takes to have a successful shelter across the river, is not high on the list if it even makes the list. It made the report, that's fair. So, what do we need to move forward? Why do we want to justify delay? I've always viewed, sometimes we can get caught into a paralysis by analysis. We can continue to go further and further and further down the rabbit hole to say we need more information, we need more information, we need more information. At sometime we've got to move ahead. The discussion, people have tried to redirect the focus by saying, well, we shouldn't talk about a shelter, we should be talking about, you know, chronic needs facility. And the point is that we are currently working on a shelter, should have been done maybe, but we're also working on the chronic risk facility. There's no reason why these things have to follow one after the other. They can be worked on simultaneously. But we can't stop and say, well, we'd like to see this one done first before we move on to a shelter. We need to push things ahead. You know, we need to understand, and I think everybody here understands that food, clothing, shelter are basic fundamental needs. You have to have that before you can talk to somebody about, well, let's talk about your addiction issues. Food, clothing, shelter, Maslow's hierarchy, bottom level, thing that we need. And this is what this shelter is designed and intended to do. Somebody made the point of where would I go, and I thought about what would I do if I was homeless? Where would I go to the bathroom? Nobody will let you into a store, and I mean, there's probably lots of good reasons why people have, you know, said, geez, I don't want to take that risk. Somebody's trashed my washroom. So a whole group of people are now barred to prevent it. Where would I go for a shower? Where would I get clean clothes? Where would I do my laundry? We look at homeless people with disdain, sometimes contempt, sometimes with compassion, but they're different, and because they look different and they act different, we're afraid. If they were housed and maybe had clothing and an opportunity to not be as visible by circumstances, I think that they would be a lot more accepted. So administration and council and the public have all worked hard at arriving and producing a report in order to fill a request to council back in December 2024. And again, I say we need to respect two things: the input from our public, the majority of people, the special interests of groups who bring forth, you know, solid cases for consideration, the objectivity of the staff, and the work that they've done, and not to discredit it. I really feel that well, obviously I'm going to support the motion. And I'm willing to support, you know, whether we go to 4 locations for a consultation or whether we go as Councillor Pronto has suggested. I'm prepared to support whatever is put forward because it'll be fair, it'll be unbiased, it'll be justifiable, and it will be defendable. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Solomon.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you to my colleagues for the comments and all of our presenters. It's been a very good discussion so far, and as always, I listen, and I listen, and I listen some more, and I speak a little less. So I will have a few points here. And I would like to start, as I am just a resident here, as our first speaker said. Whether we sit in these chairs or we sit in those chairs, we're all residents of Prince Albert, and we all share the same goal of taking care of our most vulnerable members of our city. I think that's come out very, very apparent through all the consultations I was able to attend. It's come through very clearly in every conversation, every email, every text, that that is the desire of the majority of the city, and by a strong majority, not just a little majority, a strong majority. I think we all recognize that, and it's been a real good journey. And I guess for me, whatever decision that we arrive at, it has to show that compassion, it has to show that cultural relevance, it has to show that supportive environment that's going to make a real difference to the clients that are served by a shelter. And in this case, it's going to be a permanent shelter. And I think the word permanent is why we give pause, because permanent is something that needs to be carefully considered. So like my colleagues, I don't think we've been kicking it down the road as maybe sometimes we've been accused. I think we're trying to get the information that we needed to make a good decision. And I appreciate the patience with that. When we started the process of the community consultation, I had a whole different thing in my mind of how this was going to work. We started with not talking about location. And very quickly after the 4 sessions about not talking about location, we had some alternatives put in our lap. I wasn't quite there yet, and I'm still not 100% sure if I'm there, but I will be supporting this motion. There was a lot of information gathering that I did, I guess, in terms of what wasn't an enhanced shelter. To me, that really informed whether location was as needed to the downtown or was it needed at the shelter. And there's a lot of strength in bringing those services to the shelter. When we met with Donna and folks, they do have a nurse coming there now. There is a counselor, there's income support workers, there's an addiction worker, although not enough, right? And we recognize that, and I'll get to that point here in a second. The other supports that started more recently is the wellness bus. All of those things are going to make a difference, and those are the things that really need to happen to make a difference in this situation. If we just move the shelter from one location to the next and don't start working on the core root of the problem, which is addictions and mental health, we're not ever going to be able to build a shelter that's big enough. And the province has to come to recognize that all of those supports need to be funded in a proper way. We need that full-time addictions counselor in the shelter. It needs to be there. Regardless of whatever size it is, that is a service that needs to be there. The methadone I also agree with. I think that is something that can be worked out. Whether it's possible right now, why stop with what we've been doing? Because is it working? Our population, homeless population or unhoused population has doubled. So is it working? No, it's not, because we're not dealing with addictions and mental health. Or maybe we are, and I shouldn't be too critical of the folks working in that sector. I know everybody's working towards it, but our population is growing, and I want to see the population of the unhoused go down. And I want to see those supports, whatever that dream is, whatever it would take to have that population go down, that's what I want to see in the enhanced shelter. Not because I want to kick this down the road. I want those services in place, and I wanted to understand what it was going to take. And I'm still not there. I'm still not there, but I'm making my way there. So thank you for all the education that I've been receiving on that. I do think outreach services are important. And of course, whether that's Access Place making themselves available or whether it is that full-time counselor, all of these provincial ministries, there's no reason why they can't come to the shelter and deliver services there in a consistent, routine way. When we have people that are waiting for a bed or detox bed possibly, and they have to call in every day, well, what chance do they have when they go into the city or go down the street every day? Or if we had those supports in a shelter, maybe they would be able to make that 2-week period of time before that bed opens up. And maybe something's changed, but I know that was the comments that were made to me probably 2 years ago. So if things are different now and better, then I apologize for the misinformation. I don't try to spread it. That's just my understanding at this time. So if you want to educate me after, I would love to hear it. So, and then of course, this is just one aspect of the housing continuum, right? This is the emergency shelter. And I think the other area that really needs to give these people a place to be, that is going to give them more dignity, is housing. Whether it be structured or transitional, that housing needs to be there, and we need to be able to get there more quickly. And again, I'm not criticizing anybody's efforts to this point. I just think if we're going to deal with addictions and mental health and housing, that those are the key aspects that I see from my viewpoint. And I hope that doesn't offend anybody. But and then I think, you know, when we talk about the housing continuum, the complex needs facilities is going to serve a different part of the population. And there's all these other programs that, of course, that are doing that as well. But I think with that, I'll conclude, and I thank you for your passion, your dialogue, and the opportunity to speak tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Solomon. I want to provide a few comments as well on this motion, so I don't know if I need to hand over the chair or not. A few things I would say, and there's a lot that was kind of stated in the last hour and a half or so, so a lot to digest, but I'll try to focus it to this motion. I'm not supportive of it, the way it stands today. I like the way the motion was presented initially in their last meeting, because it allowed opportunities for residents to talk about location, because through those consultation meetings, that's what came loud and clear to me was we're not deciding on a location, but I want to have a conversation about it. And that's something that I would support, but I don't want to take away from the report that was done. Looking at the city's administration's report, I mean, that to me speaks volumes. Looking at that report allowed us to identify what the needs are and not convoluting it with here's the location, because I think we would get bogged down with those decisions. So identifying what are some of the areas that we need to address, which I think is done well done in there. And yes, they come up with 4 locations. This location you're talking about is one in my ward. And so I can tell you, and my term has been an issue, it's been an ongoing issue, homelessness within our city and throughout our country, we're not unique here in Prince Albert. But residents were because it's only supposed to be the word temporary. 5 years later, here we are still talking about this temporary shelter. So, you know, I get maybe people thought that was going to go away. Maybe they don't want to move into a permanent, but it's the needs of our city. And it's important that we move towards. So I don't think that's a decision that's not being talked about here. Everybody feels that a shelter is happening. Now location. But we identified through those reports what we need to consider in those conversations. And I want to give a lot of credit to the administration for doing that, and a lot of residents for the time to come into those meetings and spend hours all evening just to kind of highlight some of those discussions, breakout groups. There was a lot. And so I want to give thanks to the people that did show up and give their time, because it didn't go unnoticed, and it brought us to where we are here today. But I can tell you in my term, residents weren't happy with this shelter in the residential zone. And every year we had to renew it. And so I got calls from residents, not all, but some, saying, I'm not supportive of that renewal. But we did it anyway because it has to be done. It's necessary in our city. But here we are talking about putting it in permanently into this location. It was only meant to be temporary. And I can tell you the last time we had this motion here, not just this chamber was full, but this whole foyer was full, with residents saying it can't be in near our yard, highlighting all these other issues that might come along with accessibility and other things. But what I did take from that is that it wasn't in the right spot. Not just because it's in the neighbor's yard, but also because it wasn't around the services. And I can tell you it's an easy decision for me. It needs to go downtown, somewhere downtown, because that's where the services are. And I want to give an example how I feel it would create some change. We looked at, in my term of council, we looked at the Margot Forney Center, the old Margot Forney Center, now the Urban Service Center. There was fences put up there. Residents were contacting us about some of the issues we're seeing downtown. People were building fences around gazebos on a riverbank. And I can tell you that I don't hear that anymore. And why is that changed? Because of the ownership change. Because instead of putting up fences, they're breaking down barriers and inviting people into those facilities. And so when you do that, you will see a positive change here. And I feel it will bring stability downtown, bringing a shelter downtown. And I know we're not talking about locations. My hopes is that we adopt the initial motion that allows the next step to talk about what those locations look like, identifying maybe the 4 that's already in the report, but looking at possibly the other ones that were mentioned. But bring us to a conclusion based on the matrix that we have, which is the services are required. I can't tell you, we put this location here, we're still gonna have residents, homeless people trudging through our wards, trudging through our back alleys. Nothing's gonna change. We're still gonna have residents, communities here coming to this foyer saying, there's still defecation on my building. There's still, because nobody has the services downtown. And so for me, it's important that we look at where the services are required, where the people are at, and the people are down here on Central. And so it needs to be in this location somewhere, and that's my comments on that. So I'm not supporting this motion the way it's worded. I want a shelter, but not in the current location it is in. I don't even know what that would look like if we were to identify this spot, because we know that the current one isn't operational, and there's not much room there. So we'll vote on this if there's no other comments. Councilor Pronto, if you want to close. No? Okay. So the motion's in front of you. If there's no more debate, all in favor? Hands down. Opposed? And that's carried. So at this point, we have a break in our agenda going into point 6, consent agenda. So if those people who have showed up here to do those presentations, I'll leave a moment here for you if you want to leave and head home or wherever you need to be. But we're going to carry on our meeting, and I'll wait a few minutes of those who want to leave. So thank you all for your attendance tonight. Okay, we'll get started here. So I'll ask the council to get back to your tables. Chairs. We got a long night ahead of us. Okay, so we'll get started here then. The next item on the agenda is our consent agenda. 6.1, we have a few items there. I don't know if council, what's your wishes on this? Any to be removed? Councilor Leywitz.
I would like more information on a few of them.
Okay.
So could I postpone
Yeah,
those?
which ones would you like?
Item 261, items
Under 6, yeah.
6.1.
6.1, yeah.
But
So,
like certain items within those accounts.
yes, and so we'll just pull the item from now, and then we'll see if there's any other items that council want to talk about, and then we'll come back to that 6.1, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Any others? So if there's no, so we're doing under the consent agenda, pulled 6.1, any others to be pulled? If not, then a motion to accept the remaining.
I'll move. So moved.
Councillor Kilmer has moved items 6.2, 6.3, 6.4, 6.5 under the consent agenda. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Hands down, opposed, and that's carried. So we have 6.1. Councillor Leowitz.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I would just like more information on these services provided from item 261, item 76, and item 64, please.
64 was the last one?
Yes.
Okay, so administration has noted those, and you will get a report likely the next council executive meeting based on what those expenditures are. Motion to move those, or to pull those items?
Yes, I'll make a motion to pull those items, please.
To review those items, administration bring back a report the following executive committee. I'm ad-libbing a lot here.
I'm already on the fucking thing.
Okay, motion's on the board. Any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Hands down, opposed, and that's carried. Okay, we'll move on to our reports of administration and committees. 7.1, road rehabilitation and construction tender, PowerPoint by Evans Hastings, Capital Projects Manager. Just got to turn the podium. Yeah, you got to press the button. Yeah, we don't have that capability up here. There you go.
There we go. Let's see if the...
And you only have 5 minutes, so just kidding.
Let's see. Oh, there we go. All right, well, good evening, everyone. The purpose of this report is to review and award the road rehabilitation and construction tender. So this year was a little bit different to past. Previously, the City of PA had a concrete contract and an asphalt contract in order to complete road rehabilitation work. Through review with other administrations such as the procurement division and review of how other cities tender the work, it was determined that it was advantageous to the city in order to amalgamate them into one contract. This was primarily because one prime contractor could be in charge of the work, including work tasks, scheduling, and a reduced risk to the city. One of the big goals this year was to have the engineering and procurement divisions collaborate thoroughly throughout the entire tender process, and there was 3 main goals. That was to have a fair tender process, transparent bid evaluation, and an accurate scope of work. Here at the bottom, I have improved scope equals improved pricing. And essentially what that means is the more accurate you are in quantifying the work, the less risk there is for the contractor, meaning the pricing can come down for the city. And this year it was successful, meaning that we will get more work this year with the same amount of funding. For bid evaluation, we had 4 key categories: project delivery, methodology, project experience and capability, and pricing that were quantified. And the main goal was to have a transparent process so that all contractors knew how their bid was going to be evaluated and scored. This year, 2 proponents met all minimum thresholds and were considered to have compliant bids. And for more information on the bid evaluation, there are 4 pages appended to this report with more information. So the results, B&B Construction Group Inc. scored the highest in the bid evaluation, as well as submitted the lowest price at approximately $4.5 million. And for that reason, the recommendation by administration is that the road rehabilitation and construction tender be awarded to B&B Construction Group Inc. for a 1-year contract with the option of 4 additional 1-year extensions. Thank you, and at this time I can answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hastings. Any questions from council? Mayor Pawlinski.
Sure. Thank you very much for the report. Now the B&B Construction Group scored the highest in the bid evaluation. and I understand actually quite a good substantial saving to the city. How will the additional one-year extensions, if we do 4 extensions, how will we be able to know that we're getting the same value for the dollar? Can you tell me how that works?
Absolutely. So each year we would get new bids, I guess, for the upcoming year. So that would be 2026 if we wish to proceed with that same company. And we can reflect and see their pricing as it gets adjusted. So for this year, we have 48 separate bid lines. We would be able to compare their pricing from this year compared to next year and see if that's a reasonable increase. And if it's beyond a reasonable increase, then it would go back to tender. If it is deemed to be a reasonable increase, it would come back to council for review and approval.
So how do we define what a reasonable amount is?
So we can review the inflation index. You know, for many years, it's been around 2.1%. I mean, during COVID, it was a little higher, definitely. But we can review that at a baseline, and if it far exceeds that, then of course it would go back to tender. If it is close to that, then we have a pretty reasonable bid. And this year we are able to see, you know, what other contractors are able to provide. So we'd have a pretty good understanding and a recommendation for council at that point.
Thank you.
Councillor Kilmer.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the presentation. The amount of 4.5, I just am wanting clarity. And that's for asphalt and concrete only?
So the 4.5 million this year, we wanted, like I said, the best scope that we could have possible. That actually includes a little bit towards the utility fund, a little bit towards the land fund, and then the amount of money to the paving and asphalt fund as well. So the reason that we include each of those is we have projects underway such as 25th Street between 7th and 10th Avenue, which this contractor would be completing that work. It would fall within their scope of work, but that would be funded by the land fund. So the 4.5 million, it is only for base work, concrete, and asphalt work, but it can be outside of the capital asphalt and paving budget.
Okay, so just to clarify for my understanding, it does not fall in the 4.4. Like, is this like, will this be consolidated into all of the work so that my worry is, or my thought always goes to budget for the capital piece, the labor piece, right? And our projections. And so this will move within all of our budgeted work during the construction season and will not result in an overage.
Yes, absolutely. This will fall fully within our budgets for this year, and we will not exceed that.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Edwards, yes.
I'll move the motion.
Okay. I do have a comment on it, if you have.
For sure.
Okay. No, and thank you, Councillor Kilmer. You did pick up on some of that. That's what I was thinking. This bid is higher than the amount we receive for our taxes at 4.4, but you mentioned that it encompasses, different funds and different works as well. But I know we've been probably the best customers to this group for, I don't know how long we've been buying asphalt for them, and I would hope that it would be in consideration as well. But I guess just to pick up on Councillor Kilmer's question, are they just providing, we're dumping off the asphalt, good luck, or is it other services as well that comes within that? So.
I see. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah.
No, this would be the full asphalt supply and paving, so they would provide asphalt to the city operations at times, but the primary load of the work would be repaving our roads from start to finish, rebuilding our roads from start to finish, and following up on utility projects, basically fully rehabilitating and constructing our roadways in the city, including concrete.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. I often get comments from people out of town saying, "Oh, you got great roads here." And I will talk to a resident, potentially may have a different opinion, but I look forward to seeing the work that the construction season brings and the new additions to our city as well. So, thank you. Motion on the floor. Any other comments on this? Seeing none. Ready to vote. All in favor? Hands down. Opposed, and that's carried. Thank you. We'll move on to our next item, 7.2, the Cosmopolitan can't say it, Lodge Food Services Agreement. Tim Yeaman, yes. Mr. Yeaman, if you could come to the podium.
Okay, no, 5 minutes.
Yes, 5 minutes.
Okay. Thank you, Council and Deputy Mayor. The report before you this evening and for your consideration is for the Cosmopolitan Lodge Food Services Agreement. The department has provided recommendation that a food services agreement for operation of the Cosmopolitan Lodge be awarded to DPAC and Akshaw Aurora for operation of the Naughty Pine Bistro starting May 1st, 2025 through to April 30th of 2030. The current agreement is set to expire on April 30th of 2025, which required the city to issue a request for a proposal. The RFP was released to the public Tuesday, January 14th of 2025 and closed Wednesday, February 19th of 2025. During this process, the city did receive a total of 5 inquiries of interest, with 2 proposals submitted for consideration at the closing date. The Cosmopolitan Lodge in the past has been operated as a day-use canteen setup with grants provided yearly by the city until the end of 2019 when the department investigated and explored options to create a more sustainable use for the location that allowed less resilience on city grant funding to support it. The approved concept in operation today is the Naughty Pine Bistro that operates out of the Cosmopolitan Lodge. The city, under the current agreement, did provide grant funding to the current operator with the understanding that by the end of the 4th year of the 5-year agreement, that the grant funding would no longer be provided by the end of that 4th year. The first year of operation provided $120,000 in grant funding. That was our COVID year operational grant. Year 2 provided for $80,000, which was just coming out of COVID. Year 3 provided for $40,000, and year 4, $20,000. By the end of the 5th year of the agreement, which expires April 30th, the operator has agreed that she will provide the city with a check of 4% of overall net sales for the fiscal year ending 2024-2025. The new food services agreement we are discussing today would not rely on grant funding from the city, resulting in the contractor being self-reliant on building on the continued success of the location. The new contractor would as well be responsible for the Sask Power and Sask Energy bills for the building. This could potentially total approximately $2,000 per month and would be a huge turning point and cost savings to the city, noting that we would no longer need to provide grants to operate the lodge. We're also in a position today to see a contractor not only support themselves and their staff, but to contribute back to in a positive manner, such as to the contribution of utilities. The new contractor, who scored an overall 96.2% favorability on their proposal, has offered to continue operating Naughty Pine as is, while operating to improve and provide great service, food products, and continuing on with some of the great experiences the Cosmopolitan Lodge has become known for over the last few years. And those things are Thursday night wing nights, live music and community events, support for the Pine Needle Bike and Music Festival, support for the Giving Tree for Herb Bassett Home, fundraising for Big Brothers and Sisters, and local radio events, such as the Summer Free Ride, all of which are hosted and supported out at the Little Red River Park. The department is recommending that the city continue to support the concept and use and the food offerings that the current users and clientele of the park have become accustomed to over the last few years. I have provided some additional thoughts within the report as to why the proposal is recommended to be supported, noting that one of the most important of these is the following. The department believes that as we continue to improve upon the services within the park, and if changes are required, that the community and users will provide us with that insight. At this time, the department is not hearing the need for change, and as such, we believe in the concept in place and that it adds value and an experience that cannot be found anywhere else in Prince Albert. The proposal presented provides for commitments by the contractor to financing ongoing business support and training, and is considered the strongest contender in creating ongoing consistency in operation and a positive and familiar experience that the community has strongly supported over the last 5 years. Sorry, excuse me. With the assistance of the city purchasing department, an RFP process was developed that ensured proper processes were followed, and that when the RFP was issued, that it reached the targeted and required platforms. All interested parties considering proposals in the process were invited to meet with the Parks and Open Spaces Manager, myself, to have an open and transparent meeting, outlining the process and to ensure information shared was consistent between parties. The department is confident with the recommendation and the process implemented, and leave it with members of council should they have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yeaman. Appreciate that. Councillor Edwards, do you have a question for Mr. Yeaman? We have another presentation on this one as well.
I do, but it can wait till after the presentation.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so the next individual, Mr. Horn, if you could, come to the podium. You've asked to speak. So go ahead, yes. You have
Good
5
evening,
minutes.
Council and your worship. Thank you for allowing me some time to speak on behalf of the Cosmo Lodge and the new, I guess, contract. I'm here on behalf of the Prince Albert Ski Club. I'm the current president, have been for a number of years, user of the park for my whole life pretty much, organizer of the Pine Needle Mountain Bike and Music Festival, involved with the Rock and Road Cycling Club, back on the executive again, and so very in tune with the park and kind of what's been going on in the park. And we're very, very fortunate to have the Cosmo Lodge in the park. And I guess when the lodge was first built, it was built as a public day lodge. And that's what Tim had kind of mentioned. Previous usage was with a canteen, and people could go in and use the lodge, during operating hours. 5 years ago, when the new kind of tender came out and the Naughty Pine was picked, it was, told to us user groups that it's going to be a bistro and it's not really, going to change the, I guess, the accessibility as a public day use lodge. But as it's kind of gone, the lodge is essentially a restaurant, and the public, doesn't feel comfortable or isn't very inviting, to just go in with your family, and if you have a bag lunch, I don't think you can take food in there, and use it as a public day use lodge, which I'm not saying that's what it should be entirely, but I think that it would be a pretty easy update to the existing contract to, essentially partition off a third of the lodge or an area, that would allow, the general public to use the lodge. Skiers put on their ski boots, they go for their ski, they come back, they can, take their, ski gear off and be on their way. Bring a thermos with some coffee, hot chocolate, whatever, bring a bag of lunch, and not feel like they're breaking rules. And so I think I really love the Naughty Pine. I frequent there quite a bit, and it's nice to have a beer and some wings and a nice coffee and a good meal. But I think that the lodge is big enough that we can accommodate, an area for a public day use. Not everyone wants to go into the lodge and, spend however many dollars on buying a meal or food. Not everyone can afford that. People that are using the lodge, we have a lot of different demographic out there. I don't feel that those people should be maybe necessarily singled out, if they don't have the means to support, the Naughty Pine. And so if you're familiar with going into the lodge, when you go through the main door on the north end of the building, you walk past the water cooler, there's the hallway to the washrooms to the right, and then when you enter to the left, there's like an area on the north side of the lodge that, it's usually pretty quiet anyway. I don't think I've ever been in there where the lodge has been full and packed, so there definitely is room to, in that area, have just, your plastic tables and have that kind of cordoned off so that it's not, you're not infringing on someone's date night or something. But I don't know, I think it's an easy fix. I'm not sure if the current kind of contract and the way it's written up would have to be amended. Just to let the new, the new contractor know that, there's going to be, an area in this lodge that is open for public day use, and people can, maybe have a bag lunch or just feel like they're not infringing on a restaurant. But again, I want to thank Tim for all his hard work that he's done into the park. I like the concept that has been provided, because it has definitely raise the level of what's offered in that lodge. You know, and we're very fortunate to have our park and getting more people out there to enjoy the park that maybe necessarily wouldn't go out there. So by no means am I against, you know, what it is now. I'm just, you know, just an idea to maybe try to enhance the lodge to appeal to, you know, just the general public a little bit better. But yeah, that's kind of what I have to say. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Horn. Yeah, we'll open up to council. Do you have any questions or comments for our guest?
Overall, I have some comments.
Okay, but not specifically for Mr. Horn? No?
No, I will. Thank you for coming out, and I respect the fact that you use this area probably every day. So
Well, not as much
really
as I like to.
appreciate your words and your commitment to the park and dedication and passion. So I will make those statements.
Well, then, if I do have a, I guess, clarifying question, I could ask the administration as well before you start, Councillor Edwards. So currently, Mr. Horn, there's no, like, I think of a as of a chalet, and you're saying that there's no ability currently where people can come in and put their stuff on and get on the hill without, they can't do that currently in the Cosmo Lodge?
Well, people can go in there. Yep. And sit at the tables. But I believe there's a sign that there's no outside food or beverage on the building. And so it really, I guess it singles out people, you know, like we've got members of the ski club that, you know, they'll go in there and they don't go in and necessarily buy or frequent the restaurant to purchase, but, you know, putting on their ski boots, you know, it's hard to drive a car in your ski boots. From the cycling club, you know, we go out there and we have our riding, we meet, and we'll go and do our bike rides and you know, we'll go and use the washroom, fill our water bottles, but we don't go in and kind of sit at the tables, you know, unless we're going to, you know, have a beer or something like that. The Jackrabbit, like our Learn to Ski program through the ski club, they attempted to use, you know, there's the new warm-up shelter that's kind of been built. It's not quite big enough for that, but they can't use the lodge to necessarily go in. We've got too many kids, so it's really kind of, I guess, eliminated the options to use it in some of those regards. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that answer. I don't have any more questions, I guess.
I have one.
Yep, Councillor Lewitz, and then I see.
I know one too, yeah.
Like the times that you go to the Cosmo Lodge, have you ever been met with kind of that abrasive attitude of them not wanting you in there, or is it just...
I personally, I don't go there unless I'm going to, you know, to go for a drink and some food. When I go use the park myself, I'll typically park at the northwest parking lot. It's a little bit more central to, you know, our ski trails and our bike trails. So working at Fresh Air Experience, we've had, you know, there's lots of people that come in the store and they've expressed their, you know, their opinions and their concerns about, you know, the way they've, you know, gone in the lodge, and it, you know, not a super warm feeling unless you're a patron of the Naughty Pine. So that it has been expressed by multiple people, you know, through the ski club. We had a meeting with the Cosmopolitan guys 2 weeks ago, and they've expressed concern on how the lodge has been, you know, transformed into a restaurant as well. You know, their name is on the lodge, and I don't know. I think the communication lines have been broken, but working at building those back together, and so I think they would like to see, you know, a little bit more of a public accessibility offered to the lodge as well. So yeah, like personally, I'll go in and I'll use the washrooms because Little Red doesn't, you know, have too many washroom facilities, but you know, that's basically it. Unless I'm going to use, you know, go to the Naughty Pine and patron them.
Have you seen use of the warm-up shelters in effect that you would consider would be more chalet related?
Well, the warm-up shelters by the tobogganing hills, I think, are fantastic. The warm-up shelter that's by the Cosmo Lodge is, I don't think it's quite as used because there is a day lodge there, but because I think there's 3, right, Tim? 3? Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure how much the warm-up shelter is being used by the lodge, to be honest. Because the ski club, like I mentioned, the Jackrabbit guys tried to use it, but it's just, you got to go in and start a fire. It's not, quite big enough for the group. We had close to 40 kids, skiing in the Jackrabbit program this year, so it just doesn't quite work for those guys.
No, good, thank you.
Yep.
Councillor Brown.
The Jackrabbit Club, is that little old building at the bottom where they do the ski rentals?
No, that's the Kinsman Alpine Ski Center's building, the old log cabin. Yeah, so that's where they do their downhill ski and snowboard rentals and lift tickets.
Yeah, I was in there this winter. It looked really nice, so I didn't know why is that not an option for putting your boots on and stuff? It's really nice in there. I liked it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. That one I think is kind of dedicated. Like I think Nathan and his guys that run the hill, that's kind of their lodge for the for the kids that are on the ski hill. It could be an opportunity for for people to use. There's no washrooms in that building. It's just more or less their, if you wanted to go buy a lift ticket to use the hill, you'd go in there and buy a lift ticket, and if you wanted to rent skis, that's where you'd go. But I know that the kids from the lodge, from the ski hill, like they'll go and hang out, and that's where they can go kind of go warm up.
Okay.
But then it's open basically the hours of the ski hill.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just wanting some clarification because I was out there and
Yeah, the old log cabin has been there for a long time.
yeah. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Horn. I don't see there's any more questions for you, so thank you for your time and your presentation. Sure. I do have a question to the director, though, I guess, if I could. I guess I'm the chair, so I can. So we're going to pass this motion today, and I get it. We want to provide some services to the people attending Little Red, but do we need to adjust the contract if because in my mind, I think it's it's hand in hand. You're going to be putting on ski boots and everything else. I get there's some complications when you're bringing in a bag lunch when you're trying to run a restaurant. So, but can you speak to some of this or that comment made, or do we need to make changes?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So what we've brought forward today is what we believe is a balance between, and Tim noted it in the background of his presentation, of the financial challenge that the department and all the departments will receive through the budget process with a level of service provided to the community. In this case, over the past 5 years, what we've seen is I guess would be 120 plus what we're seeing on an estimated annual basis here, a $24,000 savings on the utilities. So we've seen approximately $144,000 swing on the financial challenge. So that's just speaking to the financial challenge. We took that approach 5 years ago, brought forward a proposal that was new, that also invites new people out to the park. Many that we've spoken to that have never been out there before have been long-term residents of the city, and it is a draw for them to attend the park as well. So the challenge here is trying to balance existing use, new users, people that are interested in attending the park that didn't before or didn't maybe partake in some of the established activities out there, but do like to attend the park, the scenery, and something that isn't offered anywhere else in the community. So it's served that draw too. At many of our facilities, aside from this one, where subsidies are provided, does focus on making sure that accessibility is there, but I will note for council that can possibly come at a cost. We're interested in those conversations by all means. Some communication with the proposed operator here, I think, may get us to a solution that Mr. Horn is raising. So we're certainly interested in keeping those communication lines open. This, if approved today, of course, would still require council approval. So we do have a little bit of time should we reach out to the proposed operator and concerns possibly raised with partitioning off an area, and if that were to restrict business or not. I can't speak for them, but we would need to raise that to the operator here and see if there's a way forward with that communication, as Mr. Horn noted. Should there be potentially some concerns with that raised and potential for revisiting the city's financial assistance in order to accommodate the public use in balance with the business out of that site. We would note that change when the report comes forward at council. So very open to the communication. Let's see where that takes us first. If we can arrive at a solution, then we wouldn't be noting any other changes. However, if those do reveal potential changes to the agreement, when it comes forward at council for the April 7th meeting, we would note that in the report for consideration at that time.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Director. That's very helpful, yes. Any other, I think, Councillor Edwards, and then I know Mayor Polinsky next, so go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor, and I appreciate the information, Jody. So with that consultation of the proposal from the Horns, I think we should have that in the motion, that we discuss that option of maybe partitioning off a couple of tables. I think it seems pretty reasonable to me. I know that was one of the concerns when we first brought that in was how much access is it going to be, and are you going to feel like you can access it? I hadn't heard many complaints. I have heard a couple of them over the few years, but I think it's kind of reasonable. I don't know whether they'll lose much money because they're not sold out all day long. There are tables available. Yeah, and I would like to hear from Tim on a couple of things, and this, if you want to voice your opinions on this, that'd be good.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead, Mr. Yeaman.
There we go. Okay, actually, I do appreciate the conversation. I do appreciate being open and having some transparency here. And I do have a good working relationship with the Horns. The one thing that keeps on going through my mind is we're talking about things tonight that we don't actually have facts. We don't have numbers, right? So I just want to caution us here. I think if there's some work to do, there's probably some survey work. There's probably some consultation work to do with the user groups, right? Yeah, you know, and we've had these discussions with the Cosmo Club. I've had them with the Horns as well. I understand the concerns, right? But I want to make sure that we have all the factual information in front of us so we can make the right decision. I'm not saying that the new contractors wouldn't be open to having that conversation, but I do caution that when we ask a contractor to come into a building to operate with no grant funding, to take on a responsibility for utilities that we've worked so hard over the last 5 years to turn the ship around and to prove that there's opportunity out there, and to not ask the city, not ask the taxpayer to take on the responsibility for the Cosmo Lodge when we've proven that we can do it without taxpayer dollars. So, and I think that there's a bigger conversation to be had here too about what type of further use is required as far as buildings out at Little Red. Having the Horns bring forward a proposal on a rental space or a lodge or something like that. We've had conversations around that as well. So there's other conversations that still need to happen, but I just want to caution us that if we're looking to ask the contractors to make a change that could impact their financial viability and supporting themselves and supporting their staff, then let's make sure we go out and we do the proper consultation work. Do the work that's required to speak with the user groups, actually hear how many people are really having concerns about it. Because I don't know, but I know that the school systems, the school board strongly support Little Red. They use the back room at Little Red for land-based learning almost every week, right? We have other user groups out there. We have bookings for the lodge right up through till the end of July right now for weddings, for graduation, for a number of different things. Barb has shared that information with me. So we have a good thing going out there. I'm not saying that we shouldn't do something, that we should actually look into this further, but let's make sure we have the factual information to make the right decision. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, thanks, Tim, and I respect that. I mean, the park is heavily subsidized as it is, and we want to continue to offer that subsidy and the amenities it can offer for sure. So in that case, it sounds like you want to do and you're able to do some consultation.
I think so. We're open to having those conversations, and I think it's important that we do. At the end of the day, though, it's really up to the contractor. Within the body of the agreement that the contractor signs, if they want to do rentals, that's up to them to have that consultation with an outside user group and to provide a space within the lodge to do that. What we're talking about is warm-up space and those type of things, but there are some options within the agreement that allows for further conversation.
Yeah, I would be more concerned about some of those that don't want to spend $5 on a cup of coffee, right?
Right.
Or whatever they charge, I don't even know.
Right.
That would be my concern.
Right.
And if it's, so will you do those consultations? And do you need a motion in order for that to occur?
I don't think we need a motion to make that happen.
Yeah.
But one of the other comments that I do want to make is when we started this process 5 years ago, we received nothing but complaints, day in and day out. And we have made huge strides within the maintenance of the park, within the service level within the park, the experiences within the park, and that's due to partnerships, right? The Prince Albert Nordic Skate Club has been a great partner for years. And without them, we wouldn't have the trail systems that we have. I know there's lots that's being developed out there over the last 5 years, but we need to continue focusing in on the positive and find solutions for the things that aren't working right now.
And I hear nothing but positives for sure. And I agree with you on that aspect of things. So here's my 3 questions. I think you said it already. The grants are done?
Correct.
We're not offering grants.
We're not offering grants.
Does the city see some income for us?
We have changed the tide on that one because it would be difficult to ask a contractor for a percentage of sales when sales could be up or down every year.
Right.
So we thought the better way to go was to ask them to take on the cost of the utilities, which is a cost savings to the city.
Okay, that's question 1. What is the experience of this group that we're proposing right now? I think that was in the report somewhere, but.
Correct. So this group that's willing to take on the Cosmo Lodge, the Naughty Pine Bistro, are past employees of Barb's. So they have experience within the food industry. Some of them are actually have experience and certifications within the food industry as well.
Thank you. And is there an out clause if they cannot offer what is expected?
Yes, there is.
Perfect. Thank you. I'll move the motion.
Okay, motion on the floor. Any other speakers? No? Okay. Seeing none then, all in favor for the motion present? Hands down, opposed, and that's carried. Thank you. We'll move on to 7.3, fixed valuation of farmland agreement. City Assessor Vanessa Vaughn. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So this report is to consider bylaw number 7 of 2025 to establish the renewal of a fixed assessment of farmland property agreement. So in the Cities Act in section 168, it provides council the ability to enter into an agreement where the land is used exclusively for farming purposes and a person whose principal occupation is farming. So prior to this report, assessment confirmed the physical data with the property owner to ensure no physical changes had occurred and confirmed the status of occupation since the last agreement was signed. So this agreement provides council the ability to treat farmers within the city limits the same as in the rural municipalities as per their section 293 of the Municipalities Act. And that section exempts farm-related buildings and homes. So the taxable value of the farmland is applied against the taxable value of the house, and farm buildings become exempt. So this is a renewal of an agreement for 2025 to 2028, and this exemption has been approved to the property owner in the past. The property continues to meet the requirements as set out in section 168, so therefore administration recommends that bylaw number 7 of 2025 be introduced and given 3 readings. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, what are your wishes? Any questions? Councillor Solomon.
I'll make the motion.
Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Hands down, opposed, and that's carried. Thank you. Move on to the next item, 7.4, Short-term borrowing, operating line of credit, bylaw number 6. Verbal presentation from the Director of Financial Services.
Good
Whenever you're
afternoon,
ready.
Mayor and Council. The city currently has a short-term borrowing operating line of credit bylaw. This bylaw states that the amount of money that may be borrowed through the operating line of credit shall not exceed $12 million at any given time. The city currently has an operating line of credit through the CIBC. Finance Administration is recommending that we increase the operating line of credit to $18 million to address upcoming debt financing payments and large capital and fleet spending prior to receiving the bulk of our taxation revenue, which is June 30th. Our finance team has been performing ongoing cash forecasting, which is a process of reviewing the timing of our cash flows over a given period of time. And as a precautionary measure, we are requesting to increase the operating line of credit by $6 million. There are several factors affecting the city's cash flow at this time, including the following. Payment of capital construction costs with reimbursement later in the year or over multiple years. An example of this would be the Aquatic and Arenas Recreation Center. The city is required to pay the contractor upfront for these costs, but we are still waiting for the administrative holdback of $2.2 million, which will only be released once the final documentation is approved by the province. Another example affecting the city's cash flow is the outstanding amounts owing from the city's accounts receivable and taxation divisions. These outstanding amounts total $9.8 million at this time. The city also has various loan payments that are coming due prior to the June 30th taxation due date, which total $8.6 million. In addition, there are also several large fleet purchases which will be made in the next few months relating to the fleet that were approved in the 2024 and 2025 budgets. We are hoping to make these purchases before any tariffs are imposed. These are just some of the factors affecting the city's cash flow at this time. There was another time when the city increased its line of credit, and that was back in 2020, when it increased from $12 million to $22 million to assist residents with late payment of taxes due to the effects of jobs during COVID. At the end of 2020, the city's operating line of credit was set back to $12 million. Going forward, the city needs to evaluate the timing of incoming revenues and match repayment schedules accordingly. The increase in the operating line of credit to $18 million, again, is only a precautionary measure to ensure that there is sufficient cash available for the next couple of months before June 30th, when the bulk of our taxation revenue is received. I can answer any questions that you might have at this time.
Thank you, Director of Financial Services. I have Councillor Leywitz.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and through to the Director. Is this $18 million line of credit indefinite, or does it return back to its original $12 million once we have received the bulk of our taxation?
Well, we could recommend to put it back to the 12 million, but I suggest we would leave it for the next 5 years, which is when our big loan payment of 18 million will be paid off.
How much, on average, over the last year have we carried in that line of credit?
So I did a little research, and we went into our line of credit in May and November of 2019, and again in January and February of 2022. I just went back as far as 2019.
So as of right now, there is $12 million available on the line of credit?
Correct.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I have a question. There's no one else in the queue. Then I guess a couple of comments. You know, you say this is a precautionary measure. I guess right away, what happens if we don't borrow this? What happens if we say no to it? Because, you know, maybe, is there enough money, I guess, in the bank accounts to cover our costs? I'll start with that question.
Well, like I said, we did the cash forecasting process, and we're getting close to the 12 million. going into the line of credit prior to the June 30th deadline, just assuming our cash flows from the last 3 years that we did the forecasting on. But again, it just depends how many people pay prior to June 30th. Like, we just want to cover our bases prior to the June 30th deadline, because again, it's a process to come to council and ask to increase our line of credit. We have to prepare the report, we have to provide public notice, so that's a process, and we are just doing this as a precautionary measure.
And a follow-up question, so you, thank you for that response. So you think 6 million is that number? Like, is that the number we need? Because that is, you know, it is a substantial ask today to increase that. Why 6 million? City manager?
Maybe I can answer. I think what we're looking for is we just want to be precautionary. If we're asking for any amount of money, we're simply asking for that amount. We don't know, and I think if you look at the chart, that is the cash flow projections that financial services did. For instance, in April, we are predicting that we'll get the administrative holdback of $2.2 million from the province. We're hopeful of that. But if we do not get it by the end of April and our loan payments go out on May 1st, as you can see at the very bottom of the May chart, we will be over our overdraft and we can't go over our overdraft. So it's really just a precaution. Will we go that far? We're praying we don't, but with what we're seeing, we possibly can. You can put the number to 17, you can put the number to 16, you can put the number to whatever you want. We just feel that 18 gives us that clear leeway that if anything else comes up, we don't have to come back to council and ask for more. Because as the Director of Finance said, since 2019, we've literally gone to our overdraft 4 times, 4 months out of that number of years. That's not a normalcy for us, but we are finding with our loan payments that, if we would have predicted better, taking out our loans in maybe July instead of May, when after our taxes come in, we probably would have set ourselves up better, but that's not when the loan payments are coming out, so it's just a precaution.
Thank you, City Manager. I guess the last cost, and that kind of answers the question about why I don't see it going back down to the 12 million after this boring or in July, once receiving our taxation, because your prediction is the 5 years waiting to pay off the loan, at the $18 million loan that we had taken out last year, I believe, or the year before that. Okay, so I guess the only question I have left is, what is it going to cost us?
If we don't get the $2.2 million, according to our forecasting, it could cost us $67,000 in interest. If we do get the 2.2, it could go down to $42,000. But again, it just all depends what kind of revenue comes in prior to June 30th.
Thank you, Director of Finance. Any other questions? I have Councillor Solomon.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, through the Director. I just want to make sure I heard something correctly. We have $10 million in outstanding taxes that are payable?
Accounts receivable and taxation, but when we talk about taxation, it would be the taxes that are in arrears, not the current taxation.
Right. So that obviously is a process of collecting that money, and there's different stages to that, and I don't want to turn this into a big, long discussion about that, but what are those steps, and how long does it take to collect on some of these things?
Well,
in a nutshell.
In a nutshell. There's lots of steps to tax enforcement, and it can take like between 1.5 years, I think, to 2 years to collect. So it is a process.
Okay, and so some of those properties already would be going through that process?
Correct.
Okay, and then at that point, even if we take title, we still don't have cash at hand?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Edwards.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. I thought the report was well laid out and very clear, and so I will move the recommendation.
Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none then, ready to vote, all in favor? Hands down, opposed, and that's carried. Okay, another item on our agenda, 7.5, the strategic plan, 2024 year-end process report, presentation by city manager.
Thank you. So administration has committed to providing a semi-annual progress report to City Council, informing about the progress made on achieving the priorities set out in the 2023-2025 strategic plan. So in 2024, administration committed to 131 projects that were identified. And as of December 31st, a total of 76 of those projects have been completed. 28 are more than half completed, and the remaining 27 projects are in the early stages or will be completed in 2025. And to summarize some examples, so there are 19 projects dedicated to the strategic priority number 1, building a robust economy. An example of one that the city has completed is promotion of Prince Albert through the CKOM radio ad campaign, which we've heard very positive feedback in response to. There are 28 projects dedicated to the strategic priority number 2, which is promoting a progressive community. And an example of a completed project there would be the actual establishment of our Chronic Risk Solutions Forum. And as you heard tonight, with the, an example is the table in relation to encampments, and they've done a lot of significantly great work in that area. So I see that as a huge success for our community. There were 22 projects dedicated to the strategic priority number 3, which is the investing in our infrastructure. An example of a completed project in that area is the completion of the Midtown Community Club Playground project, which I believe has been very wonderful for that area of our city. And hopefully this summer they get great use out of that facility. There are 62 projects dedicated to strategic priority number 4, which is a delivery of professional governance. An example of some completed projects there was the general election held in November, which all of you took part in, and it was a success. The other one is the implementation of the GIS Snow app, which over this last winter, we got the use of that application, and it's great for our residents to be able to utilize. So those are some of the successes we've had in regards to the initiatives we've taken through the strategic plan. And if you have any questions.
Councillor Pronto.
You have a question?
No.
Okay, I'd like to move the report.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Any conversation, any discussion? Mayor Pawlinski, sorry.
Thank you. A question, I know that the Promote Prince Albert campaign was, well received and very, commented very, very positively. So I'm wondering if we're doing any kind of tracking of responses from the advertising that actually lead to an inquiry about doing business in PA. So what's our impact? And I guess the next thing down the road would be that would hopefully turn into direct development. So do we have a kind of a plan to monitor this and see, or any thoughts about how we might get to that point?
I'm looking at all the directors here. Who's going to blink first? But no, anyone want to? Go ahead, Director.
I can't say that there is any formal tracking mechanism with radio advertising, whether you can say for sure what it's translated into, except for the positive feedback that we receive, that people are hearing the messages, that we are promoting Prince Albert beyond just Prince Albert to the region, as Prince Albert is a great place to live. We highlight all of the amazing things about Prince Albert. So we know people are hearing it. How many people, whether it's translating into you know, new investments. I can't answer that.
Thank you. And I guess what I'm wondering is that as people inquire about doing business in PA, it'd be interesting to know if they, you know, if that ad was one of the
Where
things.
they get their, how they got
Yeah, like what
referred.
spurred them, and that might give us some push for if that's working, then, you know, we'll continue or enhance that. So where do we catch that kind of information?
I think maybe yeah, Craig's.
Yes, go ahead, Director.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor, and thank you, Mayor, for the question. Actually, right now, what we're working on through an Economic Development Division is we are working through a business satisfaction process, and those are the types of questions that we'll be asking. How long have you been doing business in Prince Albert? You know, what's the number of staff that you have? What made you make the decision to come into Prince Albert? So that those types of, you know, that type of data will kind of rise to the surface and help us allow to focus in on certain areas. So we'll be working with our communications division. Ellen, our economic development planner, and Michael Nelson, our planning development manager, are working on that right now. So we hope to get some progress there in the coming weeks.
Okay, any other, motion on the floor, see no other speakers, all in favor? Hands down, opposed, and that's carried. We only have one, number 8, unfinished business. There's nothing under that item. Number 9, adjournment. There we go. All in favor to adjourn?
I'm hungry.
That's carried. Thank you. We'll take a quick break, supper break, I guess, 1:45. So it gives us 20 minutes, and we'll come back and do an in-camera meeting.